Hello again, everybody. I'm John Beilfuss, the executive chef of Lula's Louisiana Cookhouse here in Owasso, Michigan, and I'm sheltered in place in my kitchen. Now, stick a guy who loves to cook in a restaurant kitchen for about a month by himself, not that bad. So today, a lot of you asked, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you how to make gumbo. It's not the exact gumbo we serve in the restaurant. In the restaurant, we serve it with fried chicken bites. I'm trying to make this is a home recipe that might be easier for you. And this is like when we do a catering for you. This is usually the way we'll do it. So hang in. We should have some fun today. Well, let's start with the ingredients, folks. On our very left, in order of how we're going to use them, is 1 cup of bacon grease and 1 cup of all-purpose flour. We're going to make a roux. I'm going to talk all about a roux in a minute. You could use canola oil here, corn oil, butter. For an etouffee, I prefer a butter roux, but today I've got bacon grease. We're going to use that. And to the right of that, we have 3 cups of the Holy Trinity, which is 1 cup of minced onion, 1 cup of minced celery, and 1 cup of minced green bell pepper. I have 1 gallon of chicken stock. I've got 3 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I always have a hard time with that one. Mixed with 1 tablespoon of hot sauce. Our seasoning blend is 3 tablespoons of salt, 1 tablespoon of ground thyme, 3 bay leaves, 1 tablespoon of dried basil, 2 teaspoons of black pepper, 1 teaspoon of white pepper, and 1 teaspoon of cayenne. Next to that, we've got 1.5 pounds of frozen okra, 3 pounds of diced chicken thighs. We've got 32 ounces of tomato strips, 1 big can, 29-ounce can of either diced tomatoes. These are tomato strips, whole tomatoes that you crumble up. And then to the left of that, I have 1 pound of andouille sausage. On that andouille, I quick seared it in a saute pan, poured it back into this container with all the grease that had rendered from it. Then I deglazed the saute pan with some of the chicken stock and poured that in there too for all the flavor. So that's what we're going to start with, folks, and let's get at it. I was tempted to start with a cheesy April Fool's joke, although I hate April Fool's jokes. I never get why we do this. Oh, you want a bunch of money? Just kidding, April Fools. I just don't get it. I thought maybe I'd start with, so folks, here's our cherished recipe for Michigan's best fried chicken. We're going to take you through in detail. April Fools. So let's talk about a roux for a minute. All of our, at least, of our New Orleans dishes start with a roux. The difference between a New Orleans style roux and, let's say, in France is they continue to cook it in New Orleans to get different colors. The longer you cook it, the darker it gets. The darker it gets, the less thickening power it has. So that's always an equation that we have to work with. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to make a roux right now, and I'm going to take you through the process. Now, years ago, Grandma would stand at the stove, and probably a lot of them still do, for an hour, slowly stirring, make sure you don't burn it. When I first got into Cajun and Creole cooking, it was with Paul Prudhomme's family cookbook. And right off the bat, Paul said he watched Grandma do this all the time, and when he was a kid, she made him do it, and he figured out there's got to be a better way. So his way is go pretty hot with it and stir like hell, and that's what we're going to do. So for this dish, I'm looking for a dark caramel roux, which is somewhere between a peanut butter roux and a chocolate roux. And a chocolate roux will look about the color of Hershey's chocolate if you melted it. Somewhere between there is where I like my roux for a gumbo. So let's see what it looks like. Okay, so now I've heated up my cup of bacon fat. Just get that all melted. You see, I brought out the big boy for this, my 9-quart Lodge cast iron pot. Now we're just going to sprinkle the flour in. Try to stir it quickly so that it doesn't lump. Let's get it all in there. Now again, if you're making a bechamel or something like that, you would cook this just slowly for about 3 minutes to get that flour taste out of it. We're going to go from that stage and just keep taking it farther, and I'm going to show you step by step. Sometimes our customers are really, really cute. I had a really, really cute customer a couple years ago say to me, you know, the gumbo, it's not like they do in New Orleans. And I said, well, you know, sir, there's, thank you for that. But you see, that wall over there has got 140 New Orleans style cookbooks. And I bet each one of them has at least 3 recipes for gumbo. So my math is that's like 500 different recipes, and they're all different, and I've read them all. So there's not just like one recipe for gumbo. And he said, oh, but that's not the way they do it in New Orleans. So this has been about 3.5 minutes, coming up on 4 minutes here, and you can tell on this high heat, it's already starting to take on some color. This is what I would call a blonde roux. So in New Orleans, I've seen 3 types of gumbo. One is chicken soup with rice, which I've always thought of as chicken soup with rice. Then there's this style, which I've seen at K. Paul's, Paul Broom's flagship restaurant down there, very similar to this, which we're going to serve over rice. And then a lot of them serve this, it's like a very deep brown gravy. Wouldn't be what I would think of as gumbo, but it's very common down there. It's just not the one I care for. This is the way I like my gumbo. I hope you do too. We're up here around 5 minutes now, and you can see this is what I would call a peanut butter roux, or a light caramel roux. This is about the color of coffee with cream. Back to roux. Whenever I make a roux, I usually make about twice as much as the recipe would call for, and just keep the rest in the fridge as a thickening agent. Later, maybe the gumbo gets thinner as we're serving it or something. I can always thicken it up with a little more roux. A lot of the restaurants in New Orleans actually put the roux in at the end. I always was taught to do it at the beginning, but a little extra roux won't hurt you a bit. So I would double up and keep the rest in the fridge if you don't need it at the end of this recipe. Now we're getting closer to where I want it for my gumbo. I'm going to give it another, for about 6 minutes, 6.5 minutes here. So it took me about 7 minutes to get to where I want to get it. And then it's going to keep getting darker as I cook my Holy Trinity. I'm going to pour that in there. Stir that up. I'm going to turn it down now. My experience has always been pull it a little sooner to put your vegetables in, your Holy Trinity, because it's going to keep getting darker and darker. And if you've got it way dark before you pour in the Trinity, you're going to get real black, and then it'll have much less thickening power, and it can start to taste bitter. Okay, so that's been browning here for about 5 minutes. So now you want to, when you come in with your stock, you want your stock warm at the very least. I usually keep the pot on the stove, but for demonstration purposes I didn't today. But so your stock wants to be hot when you introduce it to the roux here. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to whisk in about little bits by little bits, about a quarter there. Get all that good flavor off the bottom of the pot. And we'll just keep adding. I'm going to add about 3/4 of this gallon right now. And we'll see where we get. Save the rest for cleaning it later if we need it. So now we're just going to bring that up to a boil. Okay, that's come up to a nice boil, and we're going to add all of our other ingredients. It's a sausage, tomatoes, three pounds of diced chicken thighs, pound and a half of frozen okra that's thawed by now, I think. 3 tablespoons of whoosh, 1 tablespoon of hot sauce, and our seasoning blend. We'll stir that all up. We're going to bring that back up to a boil. In that first Creole Cajun cookbook that I mentioned, Paul Prudhomme's family cookbook, there was a lot of awesome stuff in there. And one of the things was his gumbo. He serves full pieces of fried chicken in his gumbo. And honestly, that's where I came up with the idea for our restaurant version, where we put the little chicken bites in it. Fried chicken kind of gets you to the same place. I was never quite sure how you grabbed your breast out of the gumbo. I couldn't figure it out, but it sounded delicious. So that's come up to a nice boil now. I'm going to turn it down to simmer and let it simmer for a half hour, 45 minutes. A long time ago, 75 maybe, I was sleeping 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the middle of the night, morning, and I got a call from my sister from Santa Fe, New Mexico, bawling. And, you know, what's the matter? My husband left me. I'm going to have to move back, and I'm going to have to live in your apartment, you know, with my kids. And you're going to have to take care of me because he left me with nothing. And I'm like, who is this? So then once I really realized it was my sister and she's bawling and I've got to get her home from New Mexico, home at that time was Pontiac, Michigan, I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry, you know, he was always in, you know, and all of a sudden I hear, April in Fools! That was not funny. I don't get this April Fool's thing at all. Never did. And here's what the pot looks like after about 35 minutes right now. I'd say it's done. Morgan's come over, have a bowl of it with me. We're going to get a nice picture of it for you. I also want to thank everybody that's coming and watching all these videos. I started this a week ago. 3,200 views. It's like I'm an internet sensation. And there you go. There's the finished bowl. I've put a big scoop of rice on the bottom, topped it with the gumbo. Normally I'd put some sliced green onions over the top, but I can't go to the store and I don't have green onions, so this is going to have to do. Well, there you go, friends. Chicken and Andouille Gumbo. I sure hope you make the recipe. I sure hope you enjoy it, and I hope to see you again soon. I don't know if I'm going to make any more videos before happy hour.